Story 1. Things I did that were previously innocuous or well received suddenly became incredibly annoying. For example, touching each other's buttocks around the house used to be playful and mutually enjoyed. One day she could not stand it. Completely caught me off guard, but it made sense after everything came to light. Story 2. She wanted to start birth control again after several years. She suddenly had a higher sex drive than she had in years. She suggested as a joke that we could open the relationship. She stopped talking about marriage or having children in the near future. Story 3. She stopped going to bed at the same time. If this was already the case, no problem, but the sudden change made me suspicious. It turned out she was chatting with an old boyfriend, meeting him occasionally and looking for hotels to meet. Story 4. She became very protective of her cell phone. It got to the point where she would not leave the room without it and positioned herself so I could not see what she was typing. Please remember this. If a man ever steals your woman, he is doing you a favor. Story 5. She got super involved in her coworker's struggling marriage. We were friends with them, so I thought nothing of it. She was upfront with me that she regularly had lunch with her coworker. Looking back, it's honestly kind of impressive because she is a terrible liar. She told me the truth, but it was a heavily massaged version of the truth. I vastly underestimated her ability to manipulate facts. She was having lunch regularly with him. She was helping him with his struggling marriage in the sense that she was helping the marriage struggle by talking about leaving our partners and running off together. I had absolute confidence in our relationship and did not think twice about it. Our sex life was incredible from start to finish. We got back from a trip, and she basically told me she had changed her mind and wanted to break up. Completely blindsided me. I moved out at the end of the month, but I could not let it go. I eventually caught them and immediately reached out to his wife to let her know. I have zero regrets about exposing them. The ex-wife is now my best friend in the world, so I guess it was a net positive. Story 6. I got out of work early and went to surprise her at her job. It was a coffee shop, so nothing wild. We were going through a few things, and I was trying to work on it even though she was a bit distant. As soon as I walked in, both she and her coworker saw me with looks of dread. I didn't know why, but I knew it was over at that moment. A few months later, I met my wife, and we have been happily together for 13 years, so that was a plus. Story 7. At her workplace, there were two main secretaries. One of them was a man she had become friends with. I called her workplace looking for her, and the other secretary said she had left hours earlier. She had told me she would be working late, and when she got home she said she had been at work. I told her the office had said she left hours earlier. She called that person an idiot and said it wasn't true. We broke up, and she slept with him immediately. Nothing was ever admitted. I could be wrong, but there were too many signs. Story 8. Showing extra love, as if trying to make up for her own guilt. Story 9. First, sex dries up. Then she starts picking fights to make everything seem like it's your fault so that when the truth comes out she can blame you for it. Laughing out loud. Story 10. Things stopped being easy between us, and the small courtesies disappeared. Story 11. She accused me of cheating without evidence or rationale. I was perplexed. The lesson I learned was that if your partner accuses you, the chances that they are actually the ones cheating increase. I wish I had known. I would have dumped her on the spot. Unfortunately, I rationalized that she had trust issues from previous relationships and accepted that I had to help her heal. Story 12. She suddenly stopped going to bed at the same time each night. She was not tired. She did not feel like sleeping and wanted to finish the television show, the book, or her work emails. Turned out she did this so she could text him in peace. Story 13. She began walking the dog on her own, which she had never done before. She kept her phone face down everywhere and slept with it under her pillow. She started taking baths nearly every night and drinking during those baths. She began nitpicking everything I did and became very combative. She lied to friends and family when telling stories, said she did not want children, and stopped taking candid photos of me and the dogs. It turned out she was having an affair with her ex. I unfortunately convinced her to try couples therapy and we stayed together for about 3 more years, even trying polyamory because we thought it would fix things. After my second date with someone while our marriage was open, she gave me an ultimatum: choose polyamory or her. I chose polyamory. I am still with the woman I went on that second date with. We are fully monogamous, and I proposed earlier this month. My ex is back with the person she had the affair with and continues to tell people that I am the one who cheated. Story 14. The moment I put my name on the lease for our first apartment together, intimacy disappeared. She wanted the main bedroom to herself while I slept on the living room pull-out. She began spending nights with a new man who had just moved here. She told me she was visiting her aunt in Oklahoma one weekend, but a friend later told me she had gone to New York City with the new man for his sister's wedding and stayed in the same hotel room. She claimed they slept on opposite sides of the bed. The lease began in March. In early September, I learned about the trip to New York City, and I moved out before October because I had already paid September rent. Story 15. She cared more about her physical appearance. Sex and intimacy actually increased for the first time in years. She wanted more me time and started getting angry over the smallest things. Story 16. I found a pros and cons list about cheating on me that fell out of her pocket in our laundry hamper. It was labeled and everything. Story 17. When you know, that little voice inside doesn't lie. Story 18. As a man in my mid-40s who, unfortunately, had two personal experiences and saw what happened to close friends and family, a sure sign is when they suddenly start projecting onto you. You may get accusations of flirting with other women, searches through your phones and social media, and similar intrusive behavior. They may also begin picking fights. Things you did in the past suddenly become unbearable and unacceptable when you do them now. Projection is a common unconscious defense mechanism, rooted in psychoanalytic theory, where individuals attribute their own unacceptable thoughts, emotions, or impulses to someone else to protect the ego from anxiety and guilt. Story 19. She was warm and available at first, but I had a gut feeling something was not right. My body felt different around her, as if I could not fully relax. She grew increasingly distant, giving vague statements and excuses about being tired or having too much work. Then she accused me of having many women in my phone. That was nonsense. I am loyal and would never do that. I told her that when she acted that way, I worried she might be cheating. This fear came from her casually mentioning an ex whom she had cheated on long ago because he treated her poorly. She said there needs to be trust between us or there is no point in being together. Afterward, she turned off her online status on WhatsApp, saying she did not want to be online all the time. She eventually broke up with me by text. I later found out that exactly when I developed that gut feeling, she had met someone else and started dating him while still in a relationship with me, essentially keeping me as a backup. She got engaged to this new man 3 months after she ended things with me and completely erased me from social media. In one of her posts summarizing the last year, she said she finally found the one. Yet only in March 2025 she had introduced me to her family, told me I was the one, and there were talks of marriage. It hurts, but I definitely dodged a bullet. It was a pure discard, and she looked unaffected. We are in no contact now. Story 20. She talked about a man who had been annoying her in her college class. She cheated, wrote a ridiculous book-length email justifying everything, ghosted him, and later married him. Story 21. She started complaining to me for no reason. Every little thing I did bothered her and led to an argument. Story 22. She did not want to kiss, and when asked she said it feels weird. She began taking many baths to have alone time. She stopped responding to texts or calls in a timely manner. Story 23. I posted this before, but we weren't really going out anywhere anymore. We rarely had sex, and she kept talking about a man she worked with. Eventually, I snapped and confronted her. She denied everything. We had a massive argument and I walked out. A few days later, she rang to try to sort things out. We tried and failed, so we went our separate ways. A month later, I saw an announcement in the local paper congratulating them on their engagement. Thanks for wasting nearly 5 years of my young life. Story 24. Years ago, she set me up to doubt evidence I had not heard or seen by telling me her roommate, whom I had never met, was strange and had lied about her. It was a great life lesson. When someone says, "Don't believe anything that person says," you do not have to believe them, but you should listen to what they have to say. Story 25. We went to pick up marijuana. I waited at a laundromat while she completed the pickup. After 4 hours, I became suspicious. Story 26. You should be careful when your partner gets in great physical shape for the first time in a while. That is not to say lifestyle changes to improve yourself are a certain sign of infidelity. Many of us get married, gain weight, and then grow tired of it, so we change. Story 27. They just stop acting like they love you. They start to avoid physical intimacy, such as touching or kissing, and then they blame you for it. Finally, once they feel secure, they will break your heart and move on. Do not start dating someone who is freshly out of a relationship. These people cannot handle being alone and will absolutely cheat. They likely cheated with you. Story 28. Justification. Suddenly everything is wrong and it is your fault. Projection. They start accusing you of things. Maintenance. They start doing things to make themselves more attractive. Hiding. They become withdrawn and secretive. Story 29. I ignored the warning signs. Her roommate's boyfriend told me she was unhappy but did not want to break up. I asked her if everything was okay, and she said yes. About 4 months later, I found her with another man, and he told me he had set her up with a friend. He had given me a roadmap and I did not listen. He was a jerk otherwise, but I should have listened. Story 30. She asked me how to make her new texts not show on her lock screen. That's all I needed for the wheels to start spinning. Story 31. She gets angry a lot for no clear reason and becomes cold and distant. She often did not want to see me and made many excuses. I respect privacy, but earlier she would allow me to open her messenger. About 2 years ago, she suddenly became angry and quickly changed her password. She kept giving reasons to break up even though I know I was doing my best. Her reasons felt unacceptable. Saying I could not provide for her, accusing me of using her for sex, or claiming our religions made us incompatible. I was usually the one who cried during major misunderstandings. I remember only once she cried for me, early in our relationship when her feelings were genuine. Eventually, she could not find reasons and simply ghosted me. After 4 months, she had a new boyfriend. We broke up without closure, and she used her best friend to tell me. At first, I thought she wanted space, but then her friend messaged me to say we were breaking up. She, her friends, siblings, and relatives all cut off contact. I felt betrayed, as if I were at fault. She said she ended things to avoid cheating, even though a month earlier I had suspected something and had noticed the red flags I mentioned. I was devastated and still have not fully moved on, but I am better now than 2 years ago when I felt suicidal. I was happiest at the peak of our relationship and loved her deeply. My feelings did not change during those 5 years. The pain she caused lingers and I still feel bitter, especially when I see couples we used to hang out with. I remember every detail of our memories and it hurts. Story 32. My ex, during college, traveled a couple of hours away with her girlfriend to a soccer game one weekend. She left Friday morning. When I went to her dorm, her roommate, confused, said, "What do you mean? She's away for the weekend." That was an immediate red flag. I texted her and she said, "Haha. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. I'll be back Sunday." Sunday arrived. I went to her dorm and asked how her weekend was. She gave short answers, avoided eye contact, and offered a half-hearted hug. We were very sexually compatible, so when I tried to initiate and she turned me down, I was confused. She also told me not to look at her while she changed. Everything felt off. She wasn't the same after the trip and barely gave me the time of day. It really messed me up at the time. Edit. I forgot the most important part, laughing out loud. She hooked up with one of the soccer players and had been talking to him for a couple of weeks prior. Story 33. Phone face down. Would get lost for hours. Hot and cold conversations. That's all you need. Asking is not necessary. Story 34. She insisted on opening up our relationship, even though I had never brought it up or wanted it. One night, out of the blue over drinks, she raised it. I dismissed it at first, but she kept bringing it up over the following weeks. Eventually, she cheated on me with a man who lived down the street. She knew from the start what she wanted and tried to make it seem partly my idea. It was not. It was the worst experience of my life. I lost my best friend and partner to her lust and insecurity. Story 35. She withdrew. She did not want to talk as much. She was always on her phone, and whenever I asked what I could do to be different, she would start a fight. I tried everything, but she treated me poorly. I broke up with her because I assumed something was going on. A month later, one of our friends told me she had been seeing a man for 3 months. I was right. At first, I tried to dismiss the signs because I thought I was not a good enough partner. I gave it my all, but looking back now, I can see that she had given up long before. Story 36. She gaslit me, making me feel I was always doing something wrong. She constantly accused me of cheating even though I was not. What really messed me up was not that she cheated, but that she cheated while I was grieving the death of my grandmother. My grandmother raised me and was the primary maternal figure in my life. Juggling the sadness of her passing with the low blow of being cheated on really did a number on me. It took me a few years to become okay again. I am in a significantly better place now, and the silver lining is that I used the experience to focus on a career in finance, which completely changed my life for the better. Story 37. She bought sexy new bras and panties and started caring about her appearance much more than she ever had. Story 38. Her sex drive changed significantly. She usually had a lower drive, but it became higher, probably to negate that perception in her own mind. Story 39. 3,400 texts in 1 month from a number when neither of us was ever a texter. I noticed when I logged in to pay the bill. The caller said it was her supervisor and gave a girl's name. So I blocked my number and called the number. Matt's voicemail picked up. Story 40. There was a drastic change in her habits. My girlfriend, who lived with me, went away on a business trip and returned cold toward me. She began constantly typing on her phone, which had not been the case before. We used to hold hands when we went for walks, but all of a sudden she kept her hands in her pockets. She hid her phone, whereas before she left it lying around. She went out to her car to take work-related phone calls, when previously she took them inside the house. It turned out she had met a man on the business trip and started a long-distance relationship with him. She ended our 13-year relationship, and he dumped her within a few weeks. Story 41. I have not been cheated on as far as I know. From observing others, the signs are largely the same as for a relationship that is in trouble. You stop wanting to be around each other, become easily irritated, and pick fights. If you see those signs, you need to sort things out if you want the relationship to continue, even if there has been no cheating. Story 42. Strangely, she began wearing her own pajamas. She had always wanted to wear my t-shirts or sweatshirts, but one day that changed. She bought several sets of pajamas and never again wore anything of mine. I can even look back at pictures and see when it happened. Story 43. There were stories that did not sound legitimate for one reason or another. She had to go to the bathroom a few too many times. Anytime I questioned something, I was told I was being controlling and insecure. There was an emotional distance that had not been there a few months earlier. The final nail in the coffin came when she asked me to pick up a pregnancy test even though we had not had sex in over 3 months. She insisted we had had sex a few weeks earlier. Story 44. She suddenly started playing Dire Straits' Sultans of Swing on our stereo, which was not her usual genre of music. I love this song, she said. Turned out she loved Strange Dick. Story 45. Suddenly protecting the phone as if it were classified, turning notifications off, and being unusually defensive about normal questions. Then a glow-up and new friends you never meet. Story 46. She used to talk about this new coworker all the time, and then suddenly stopped mentioning him. She made completely baseless accusations that I was cheating on her, and small nitpicky issues turned into arguments. Story 47. She was extremely clingy and wanted me to spend every waking moment with her, either in person or texting. She would always claim to be too busy with school, work, friends, or whatever, despite being very lazy, constantly talking shit behind her friends' backs and never having any ambition. It turns out her only ambition was being a parasite. Story 48. The sudden lack of affection. I can't believe I put up with that for so long. Story 49. These are the things I did not notice. 1. Micro-cheating. She talked to a man she was planning to cheat with. 2. She was often on calls and made excuses. 3. She stopped saying I love you. 4. She stopped sharing personal things. 5. She stopped inviting me to her place. Story 50. She started seeing me while she was with her boyfriend. I should have known. Story 51. Do not listen to people who tell you it is all in your head or that they just need some space if you feel them pulling away. Talk to them seriously about your relationship because something is happening. Story 52. She went to the garage to talk on her cell phone. She got drunk and sang Torn between two lovers at karaoke. She went on a multi-day trip with a group of high school friends and one man who definitely did not attend her school. I assumed he was a boyfriend of one of the girls. I was right, but I never imagined his girlfriend was also my girlfriend. I was oblivious until a mutual Facebook friend exposed her. Story 53. I didn't notice anything. I didn't find out until after she had left me, when I tried to rekindle things. She admitted she had cheated on me about 6 months before she ended the relationship. In retrospect, maybe I should have noticed. She kept telling me she was unhappy, and I never did what she said she needed from me. It hit me like a ton of bricks when she told me. Story 54. I was oblivious until she told me she had kissed a woman before and that she was in an on-off relationship with another woman. I give her a lot of credit because she came out to me, but finding out I was a side piece in a lesbian relationship was a kick to the nuts and the soul at the time. I want to quickly say I do not hate personal lifestyle or relationship choices of that nature. Story 55. Staying up late on voice chats while gaming and prioritizing them over our shared time. Then going on weekly trips to meet those people to play games, and being told not to interrupt by calling or asking about it. The biggest shock was coming home to find she had left me, leaving a Dear John letter, and discovering she was staying with those gamers, particularly one she got along with and whom I was not allowed to ask about. I had been willfully ignorant because I trusted her completely and was so afraid of saying or doing anything that might make her leave me. Story 56. She accused me of cheating and wanted to see my phone all the time, but she said no when I flipped the script. Projectionists, all of them. Story 57. More BuzzFeed content farming. They ran this story yesterday. Story 58. Speaking from the other side of this, I caught her cheating on me when I asked her point blank if she had even broken up with her boyfriend. She had not, laughing out loud. Story 59. They suddenly became secretive with their phone and overly defensive about small things, which you shrugged off at the time. Story 60. She became more distant and spent more time with male friends. Story 61. Trust your gut instinct. My therapist said our brains constantly look for patterns, so when something is off you notice it even subconsciously. Maybe she goes to the bathroom more often and brings her phone, or stays out later with friends because she left them early to meet someone else. She might behave differently in bed, grab you in a way she has not before, try a different sexual position, or kiss you differently. She may spend more time and money on her appearance or clean the car on specific days. Small changes in behavior can add up. Trying to impress someone, reliving a past experience, or hiding something. Story 62. She says she is going somewhere for a specific reason. Later, when you ask her about her day, she becomes confused and then angry. You are not calling her out for lying. You are simply asking about her day, but she takes it as you questioning her story. That was the first red flag I missed. Story 63. My now ex-wife was 3 hours late to pick me up from the airport after a 2-week work trip. She arrived slightly intoxicated and was angry that I was upset, as if needing a ride the moment I landed should have been announced months in advance. Story 64. I am just venting a little. I will be fine. She was always busy. Not the "can we do next week" kind, but the "I'd rather do something else" kind. She was too busy to take calls, have dinner, or even sleep. Then one day she simply ghosted me and walked away from our 5-year relationship to be with another man. I loved her so much and I still think about her. I don't know what I did. I haven't trusted myself since then. Story 65. They had little or no enthusiasm for doing anything other than sitting on their phone, even when we were supposed to be watching something together. Story 66. When their calendar looks like this. Story 67. She started asking me whether I ever stayed after work to hang out with a coworker I was getting along with at the time. I told her no because I did not and asked who would do that. Turned out she did that multiple times. I think I should have known. Story 68. She did not cheat on me, as far as I know, but after 22 years together my wife stopped sleeping or eating and began staying at a neighbor's at all hours of the night. She was stealing from me, lying, and behaving like a demon. She was using methamphetamine. I left her, and she never even showed up for divorce court. I finished raising our 3 children alone. I will never trust people the same way again. One question I always have is who she really was. I should clarify that neither of us used drugs before. We only drank socially. Drugs were not part of our relationship, friends, or family circle. I was completely blindsided. Story 69. Going out with coworkers over the weekend for more than 12 hours at a bar. When I asked to join, the plans were inexplicably changed. I felt foolish. Story 70. We had been married 10 years. She cried watching Hope Floats and asked how someone could do that. We built a life, 2 kids, 3 houses. Sex was daily. We went to church every Sunday. Then one day she left. She said she never loved me and never would. She took the kids and went to our lake house. She said it was me. Nobody else was involved. Later, while selling off assets, I learned she had a boyfriend since we got married and was leaving me for him. I kept waiting for Jerry Springer to reveal more. At the end, I asked her why. She said she thought I would provide a good life, but she wanted to be the kind of woman who turned heads when she walked into a bar. She said she did not want a divorce but wanted an open marriage. No one in our circle saw anything that would have raised a red flag. Story 71. She showed emotional withdrawal and increased irritability about everything. I attributed it to work stress, which was partly true, but she sought relief with another man. Story 72. She became secretive with her phone, turning it away from me, taking it everywhere she went, and placing it face down when not in use. She got in great shape and began spending more time with her sister and brother-in-law, whose friend she had a crush on for many years. They started going out together while I stayed home with our pets. I finally checked her phone when she was in another room and found evidence. Gentlemen, it is almost always the phone. If she is secretive with her phone or will not let you see what she is doing, do not ignore those signs. Story 73. I do not want to invalidate anyone's experiences, but the main takeaway is that there do not seem to be any consistent early signs. Some people say their partner became distant. Others say their partner became more affectionate to compensate. Some report that sexual activity decreased, while others say it increased. At this point, the only sign seems to be a gut feeling, which is itself ambiguous. Story 74. She became angry over small, random things. Her reasons for being mad were inconsistent. We talked less during the day, and physical contact declined sharply. We used to play the same games together, but she began playing alone with online friends instead. Story 75. One night after we had sex, she told me I was lucky to get one. Story 76. Changes in behavior. I noticed my wife wanted to spend much more time working and less time together. She stopped being as physically affectionate. Story 77. He told me I would get more couch time because of my snoring. More couch time meant he would spend more time texting. Story 78. When the twins were born, I noticed they were African American, so, being Hispanic, I doubted they were my children. Story 79. Long-distance relationship. She texted me I love you many times during the week she cheated on me. Story 80. She worked in an office and showered every morning. When she came home, she always changed into comfortable clothes and relaxed while I made dinner. I did all the cooking. Then, starting in October, she began showering immediately after arriving home. Story 81. Every woman I dated, including my ex-wife, cheated on me. An early warning sign is that I repeat the same mistakes. Story 82. Women make relationships easy when they are in love. If she makes being together difficult, start looking for someone else. Actions always trump words. Story 83. She is the all my friends are guys because they are less dramatic type. Or she has a stage 5 clinger guy friend who you know would love a shot at her, but she might not see it that way until one day when the situation is just right. Story 84. They cheated on every partner they had before me. Also, having prudish parents seems counterintuitive. Some people end up seeing sex as a form of rebellion. Sex with a committed partner is not rebellious. Story 85. She talked about her ex a lot. I always chalked it up to trauma. I thought she was trying to get over him, but it turned out she was not. Story 86. She accused me of it and then started love bombing. Seeing the texts pop up on her phone, which she had left on the couch, confirmed it. Story 87. The constant checking of their phone feels different when you look back. I did not think much of it at the time, though. Story 88. For me, it was the phone. She kept the screen face down and took the phone everywhere she went, which had never been the case. Story 89. This was during the 6th year of the relationship. I was dropping her back to her place after dinner. We were not married, and I come from a country where living together was not looked upon favorably. I leaned in for a kiss and she pushed me back. I was absolutely taken aback, and she said she was not feeling very fresh. A couple of weeks later, it was all over. Story 90. She would come home from work and sit in her car for 30 to 45 minutes to be on her phone. Story 91. I have been cheated on. She showers before going out with friends and again as soon as she gets home. Story 92. The bar my girlfriend and I used to go to had karaoke on Tuesdays. One day a man came up to her and asked if she wanted to join his band. On our anniversary weekend, she blew me off and went to band practice instead. After a while, they were sending memes and she made him a Spotify playlist. She did not act like she was in a relationship when he asked her to hang out, saying something like that she would just let her boyfriend know where she would be. I trusted her until the end. When she broke up with me, I asked if she was leaving me for someone else and she said no. Then she blocked me. The other man blocked me too, which made me laugh out loud. In their anniversary post, she included photos of them together that were taken while we were still dating. Story 93. She lacked intimacy and was short and snippy with me. I couldn't do anything right. When I tried to initiate intimacy, she denied it every time. She went out with friends more frequently, hid her phone, changed her profile picture, and stopped tagging me on social media. Story 94. She suddenly became secretive with her phone. We had always had full access to each other's devices until she wanted privacy. Story 95. How sensitive and secretive they became with their phone. Long periods of silence when they previously communicated frequently. An uncharacteristic lack of engagement or intimacy. These are the main signs. Story 96. Her personality changed and so did her stories. I accepted growing up that my mom, a good mother but a terrible adult, never had a relationship from which I could learn what love should be. So I remained faithful. She moved in with me early on because her mother was a party girl and an alcoholic who would take her money and bring random men home. Later she described her mother as a hard-working woman who did what needed to be done, leaving out the stories about being beaten and thrown down a flight of stairs. Early on she told everyone I pushed her and she was so blessed. 6 months before it ended, the story was that our kids pushed her, even though she had already started the new career before our first child. There was more and I felt like an idiot. Girls' nights would last until 6 a.m. I would get random texts at 3 a.m. telling me how much she loved me, full of regret. She had random girls' nights during the week that lasted only a few hours. Sorry, but there is no way a few drinks won't run late. It's the same with guys. I confronted her about it and she gaslit me. At that point we had 3 kids and our iCloud was set up as a family account, so whether or not you share your location, it is visible by default in Find My. She lied about the short girls' nights, but her actual location was different from where she said she was. When we split, friends abandoned me. My mother would come over and tell my ex that I did nothing with the kids. The truth is I have 3 small daughters and they are all daddy's girls. Not to boost my ego, but at celebrations they run to me first and stick to me all day. I think she really spun the narrative that I was controlling. To be clear, I had asked her to stop spending all the money we had and racking up credit card bills. When we split, we had absolutely no money. 3 years later, I had about $35,000 in the account. I take care of my girls, we go places, and I buy them what they need in clothes. I have to move out west because it is too expensive to buy a house here. I hope that when I buy a house, my daughters will follow me. This is one of the hardest decisions I have to make. But I have moved on. I reestablished a relationship with a woman I met when we were on a break. I always wondered what would have happened if I had stuck it out with my ex. Now I wish I had. I have been with this woman for 3 years now, and everything still feels like I'm living in a romantic comedy. Story 97. She only wanted to take solo pictures. Whenever we took a picture together, she stopped smiling. Story 98. She stayed late at work to catch up on things. Similar to other posts, she stopped enjoying our time together. She forced me to use the second room we had, yet I held on until the very end. Story 99. I was a bartender and she would always come in. A couple of nights she and a friend hung out outside with the bouncer all night because she said her friend was into him. Turned out it was not her friend. She broke up with me and was dating the bouncer within a week. Somehow she still had the audacity to show up at my sister's wedding even though my sister did not allow +1s and had sent individual invitations. Good riddance. Story 100. I confronted my wife when she worked in the deli at Walmart a few years ago after a new coworker, about 19, started and she began to change. Things have not been the same since. Sex is sparse or absent for weeks at a time. I was also accused of cheating with one of her coworkers, which I have never even considered in the 20 years we have been together. Story 101. For me, it was a classic case. She suddenly had to work late 2 or 3 nights a week. She said the place where they worked evenings was in a basement, so she had no phone signal and was unreachable during that time. She became increasingly protective of her phone, always keeping it on her, never leaving it lying around, and making sure to turn the screen face down so I would not see if she got a message. It all started to make me suspicious. Something definitely felt off in the vibe of our relationship. Several months later, I discovered she was having an affair with a colleague and they were going to a hotel after work. I found out the one time she left her phone on the bedside table while she was in the shower. He messaged and I saw it in plain view. I made the horrible mistake of opening it and reading the thread. Story 102. When we were engaged, instead of saying when we get married, he would say if. Story 103. In my experience, they will disrespect you more and more when you are with them. They do not want to do anything with you unless you are doing something for them. Story 104. There are small inconsistencies, such as little lies or stories that did not line up. There are also sudden secretive habits, like locking their phone, changing passwords, or browsing places you never see. At the time, you ignore them, but later you realize you had mentally noted them all along. Story 105. My ex-fiancée became a drug addict and began cheating. I noticed behavior changes which were probably related to the drugs. I suspected she was cheating when I overheard her on the phone with her boss about an ongoing family emergency that had caused her to miss several days of work. Even though I was unaware of any emergency and believed she had been going to work, I checked trips on our Uber account and found several rides to a nearby apartment building. Often she would leave for work appearing to take public transit, but she was actually taking Uber to a man's apartment. Story 106. This was before cell phones. Public displays of affection between us were the first things to go. Erratic times for coming home began shortly afterward. Mood swings came completely out of left field. Things that used to be fun now seemed childish. Excuses for not being available to take calls at our newly purchased home became common. Then they did not come home at all on a few nights, maybe 4 times in total. There were no blatant signs of cheating, but looking back I should have known better. Then, eventually, there was an admission. Story 107. My ex would bring up men who reached out to her on Instagram. We mostly laughed at their attempts and she blocked them on the spot. One man in particular, someone she had previously been involved with, kept reaching out. Whenever I suggested blocking him, she said she would, yet he kept coming up in conversation. Eventually, he sent her an explicit photo. After she said she had blocked him, I did not believe her. I discovered that she had not blocked him and had been leading him on for months, using details of our intimate moments to get him riled up. There was one unsent message that read, "Damn, I should not have told him about us." She still denies this ever happened. We were together for 4 years and had talked about marriage and children. Story 108. She is in a long-distance relationship and goes to a fraternity party every night where she acts distant. Story 109. They are generally angry with me for no apparent reason. Story 110. I'm not sure which was the bigger sign, the text previews on her phone, or walking in on her performing oral sex on whoever he was. I'm better off. This was a few years ago, and my partner now is the complete package, but I cannot unsee her using 2 fingers and a thumb to stroke his penis. Story 111. She became glued to her phone and would not put it down for a second. Story 112. She checked out of the relationship about 6 months before it ended. She suddenly stopped putting in effort and prevented me from looking at her phone. She said it was because she had photos of the wedding dress on it and did not want me to see them before the wedding. She broke things off 2 days after we sent out the wedding invitations. 6 months later, she was engaged to our mechanic. Story 113. Absolutely none in reality. She lined a man up in preparation. The day I flew out to Heathrow Airport, I am in the military, she had him in my house. I had not even finished the drive to the airport. They only kissed, she said. I had not even landed the next day and he was apparently over again. That is when she had sex with him on my new sofa, which was brand new. She kept it quiet until a friend told me, also in the military, over a month after it started. A few things before that night out should have been massive warning signs. In the weeks before, she said, "If you feel the need to find a girl out there to just release, you have my blessing." I was fervently in love with my wife of nearly 10 years, so I either did not hear or did not understand her real intention. I used to look back with horror, tears, and depression. I had little else to look forward to. I attempted suicide twice. Both times someone walked in halfway through. Now I look forward and realize I am so glad this happened then and not now. My lifelong military pension is now in payment. I have an excellent cybersecurity job. I am London-based with a huge social scene, and I am investing the money I used to give her to supplement her income, even though she contributed nothing of her own. I absolutely love the life and the lifestyle I have now, none of which would have been possible with that person leeching off me. I have a new partner whom I am intimate with, who also works in the City of London. She is level-headed, has the right morals and ethics, and holds a great job, things my ex never had. I am one step better off now, and I am glad she stumbled, because it allowed me to remove a leech from my life. In summary, I am in a much better place with a girlfriend who has the right morals and ethics, a stable, high-earning job, and who is not a leech. Story 114. She started accusing me of cheating. In hindsight, it all lines up. Story 115. I noticed how often she canceled at the last minute and how I would hear about her referring to me as her friend when talking to people who did not know me. Story 116. The door never got fixed. I had 7 men tell me they had sex with her after I sent her packing. I had to ask if the baby was theirs because it is not mine. She would go for runs and occasionally take a bath afterward. On bath days, she would disappear for a long time before coming home. The same woman did not work on Mondays but would wake up, complete an entire morning routine, and leave the house in work clothes. I did not know this until we broke up. It is always the phone behavior, hiding, angling, taking the phone to the bathroom, a new lock code, panic when the phone rings or when a text comes through. Pay attention to your partner and this will be easy to spot. Story 117. Her mother said, "I hear you play football." I have never played football and never mentioned it because I do not care about that sport. She cheated on me with a football player and at least one other person. Story 118. She stayed out all night and said she had fallen asleep on her girlfriend's couch. When she came home, she went into the garage, took off all her clothes, including her underwear, and started the washing machine. She went back to bed. An hour later, a man pulled up in a large truck and knocked on the front door. When I answered, he handed me my wife's wallet and said she had left it at his house. When I confronted her, she gaslit me, made me out to be the bad guy, and said he was her girlfriend's roommate. Story 119. I've been cheated on several times. One common change I noticed was a shift in focus and attentiveness and a decreased desire to spend time together. Story 120. I think I might be in the denial stage right now. I have to tell myself otherwise. I changed my phone passcodes after bouts of dishonesty. Physical intimacy is inconsistent. Tell me if I'm wrong, but it's a gut feeling you get before there is any physical evidence. Do you trust it or ignore it? Story 121. There was a man at work who was very kind to me. I told him I had a boyfriend, but he said he wanted to marry me. He was only joking and was a friend. A couple of months later, when I tried to look at the time, he shouted, "Do not touch my phone." This was 6 years ago. I am married now, and so are they. Trust your gut, lads. Story 122. After our last child, she lost interest in doing things together unless it included a photo op for social media. Over time, I was cropped out of photos or left out entirely as the attention grew. She claimed to be bisexual but said, "I will always come home to you," until she did not. I became an afterthought until it was time to buy a house together. Then things changed. I realized I had become the meal ticket. I was thriving in my career and earning an excellent salary. She had late nights out with the girls trips, and male friends. She cheated, and I gave her multiple chances. The worst moment was when I had her dead to rights with damning proof. At first she denied it, then admitted it when she realized I knew. There was no real remorse or apology. We separated a few months later, and the divorce finalized a year after that. It was embarrassing and emotionally destructive, and it led me to some bad places with alcohol. I decided that, painful as it was, leaving a partner of 16 years was probably the best choice. I got sober, worked on remembering who I am and what kind of person I want to be every day, and became the best person I could be for myself, my children, and my community. I waited a year before dating again. Because of everything I had been through, I met someone who adds to my life as I add to theirs. We have been happily together for 5 years now, and my life is full. Cheating is a signal, a way for people to exit a relationship that is no longer working for them, even if, or especially because, it is such a shocking signal. Story 123. They are vague, always on the phone and typing. They say they will go to work early. If they do not drink, they will go to the bar. Story 124. It is easy to see. They pull away and suddenly seem always busy. They are not as into you as before. Sexual intimacy dwindles and feels subpar. Story 125. A pros and cons list comparing you was a glaring omission that completely slipped past me. Story 126. She decided to get an intrauterine device on a whim after years without birth control and expressing a desire to try for a girl. Story 127. She sat beside the tray with all the money and insisted on being the banker. I should have seen it coming. I got robbed. She won. Story 128. She started keeping me separate from her friends. She would go out with people I hardly knew, and when I asked about them or suggested getting together, I was made to feel controlling. Only later did her 3-year-old son tell me about an uncle his mother was seeing. Story 129. Noticing how secretive she was about her phone, I realized she was monkey branching. Story 130. What began as just a new friend turned into much more. At first I thought nothing of this person. The way my partner spoke of her was casual. We are going to do an activity as a group. I am meeting up with them to help them with an activity and so on. It was not until a couple of months in, when my partner spent a lot of time in a group at movie nights or when we lay in bed late and I could see her texting constantly, that I raised an eyebrow and my gut began to turn. This was followed by a heavy feeling of distance when we spent time together. Accusations that I could be seeing someone else, and a general unwillingness to work on the relationship no matter how hard I tried. I have my own friends, hobbies, and community. I value time with those people and extended the same freedom to my partner because balance is healthy. My partner took advantage of that and built an emotional connection with this woman under the guise of friendship and helping her into a new career. I was gaslit, lied to, disrespected, and discarded when she wanted to take a break right before a large out-of-state road trip with that person and her friends. When she returned from the trip, she broke up with me. She lied, saying she needed to work on herself, and immediately began a relationship with the other person. I found out months later, while she was still stringing me along emotionally. I am still dealing with back-and-forth contact. Although I know I am worth more, it is hard to let go of the version of the person I thought she was. My feelings were sincere. My advice: trust your gut and have an honest, calm conversation. Her reaction will tell you more than her words. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.